Amazing Plantz4mationz. We have such a special episode. You guys know, those of you who are in my Facebook group, how excited I was to hear that Dr. Joel Fuhrman was going to come on and join us. And before we get started, I just wanted to read a little bit of information. For those of you, I'm sure you know who he is, but just in case, he is a board certified family physician, 7-time New York Times best-selling author, and internationally recognized expert on nutrition and natural healing. He specializes in preventing and reversing disease through nutritional methods. Dr. Furman is the president of the Nutritional Research Foundation and on the faculty of the Northern Arizona University Health Sciences Division. He coined the term Nutritarian, which I love, to describe the nutrient-dense eating style designed to prevent cancer, slow aging, and extend lifespan. For over 30 years, Dr. Furman has shown that it is possible to achieve sustainable weight loss and reverse heart disease, diabetes, and many other illnesses during using smart nutrition. In his medical practice and through his books and television specials, he continues to bring this life-saving message to hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And he also operates the Eat to Live retreat in San Diego, where people from all over the world come to stay for 1 to 3 months to recover from conditions like cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, food addiction, and more. And they also gain the skills and knowledge to make these changes permanent when they leave the retreat. And I have all the links so you can reach, link up with Dr. Furman in the description here of this video. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment those, and I'll try to get what you can. Welcome, Mariquita, to the live stream. And Dr. Furman, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm really excited that you're here.
My pleasure. Looking forward to talking today.
Excellent. I just I wanted to get started. I know you've been doing this for a long time. Could you just let us know how you even got started or began this journey in your life, how you became this nutritional expert and doctor?
Well, my father was sickly when I was a child, and I was on the United States World Figure Skating team. And we traveled a lot to a lot of physicians to try to get him help until he read Dr. Herbert Shelton's works in the Dr. Shelton wrote books in the 1950s and 60s, and my father changed his diet, lost weight, got back in better health again. So I started reading the books with him. At first I thought he was nuts, that this is crazy, to be so strange and eat so differently than the rest of people eat. But over the years, as my teenage years, I saw it enhanced performance. He never got sick, when I saw people getting well and transforming their lives, and I decided then, as I got a little older, I decided to go to medical school to pursue my education, specifically with the intent to be a doctor specializing in nutritional medicine. I thought it would be very exciting. And I always knew there'd be a niche of individuals who would want that type of care. And I thought it would be very personally rewarding. So we sold a chain of shoe stores my father ran that I was supposed to take over, and decided that he would retire and I would go back to school then. So I went to medical school with a specific intent to do what I'm doing all through my last 35, 40 years in my career. And I've been very blessed to have had huge opportunities to affect a lot of people. And it's so rewarding to see hundreds of people reverse lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and asthma and connective tissue diseases and reverse heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes. And it's just been very, very touching. You get to know people, and they're so grateful for this information when they can get their health back, compared to conventional medical care, where people just take drugs the rest of their life and stay sick forever and get worse as they get older, and then lead to medical tragedies like heart disease, strokes, cancers, and blindness and kidney failure and leg amputations, and all these horrible things happen to people that are totally preventable. And so we destroy our bodies, we destroy the climate, the world. We do a lot of destruction that didn't have to be that way. And I'm very grateful for the advancements in nutritional science that I've studied over the years that have given me the tools to help people get well.
That is excellent. And I can tell you also have a passion to want to help people heal and get better. And that's, such a great thing to see that you're, in the medical industry and you identified that, that need for people to be able to know they can take control of their health. And when did you come up with the Nutritarian type diet, and like what led you kind of down that path to have this revolutionary like diet that you came up with here?
Well, I've been recommending this high vegetable based diet. I call it nutrient dense. It's plant rich, nutrient dense. And I coined the term nutritarian, I think about 15 years ago, to describe the diet style that's not just plant-based or vegan. It doesn't have to be, 100% vegan to be nutritarian, but it's for define a diet that's designed to maximize human longevity and be the ideal way to eat for most humans. And I also am impressing, this point that the diet that enables maximum human lifespan is also most therapeutically effective to reverse disease when people are sick. And whether that's whether they have cancer, or whether they have heart disease or diabetes or an autoimmune disease, it's the same basic principles of nutritional excellence that maximizes longevity. It also can be therapeutically effective to enable people to get well from serious illnesses.
Wow, that is amazing. And what exactly like would be a meal, let's just say that you would recommend for someone, or a typical eating day, if possible? I know you have tons of. I watch your videos. Like I saw this video where you were making soup, and like I literally was getting so hungry looking at it. But what would be like a typical meal plan for a day?
Sure. And I'm very proud of um, all the incredible recipes that we have available for people. And it's partially my own creations, but a lot from chefs, from famous chefs who contributed recipes, and also individual people who were members of my website who sent their recipes in. And the ultimate result is like 2,000 recipes that are scored by members and people who, and they're really phenomenal. And they're like, for example, the meals here at the retreat are like going to a 5-star restaurant. They just are incredible. People leave the table at dinner and they go, wow, that was really phenomenal. So we're not like giving up pleasure of eating, we're enhancing our pleasure of eating. But I do skeletonize the diet to make it quite simple. And it's kind of like a little bit of grain, like a half a cup of grain with a cup of berries, with maybe a tablespoon of ground flax seeds or chia seeds or hemp seeds, with some plant milk. So it's fruit, a little grain, seeds, and plant milk, usually in the morning. And sometimes I'll have berries, and sometimes I'll have exotic fruits that I grow here, like a persimmon or a cherimoya or whatever or a nectarine or a apricot or a fig. So you'll just have some fruit with nuts and seeds and a little grain. Then lunch is a giant salad with scallion and onion and dry farm tomatoes. I like the tomatoes we grow, that are like, you don't water the plant in the last month before you pick the tomato. You let the tomatoes go on the plant, you stop watering, so the plants are dry and it concentrates the flavor in the tomatoes. We make a lot of tomato sauces too. But the lunch is a big salad, a bowl of vegetable bean mushroom soup. We've got a lot of great recipes for vegetable bean mushroom soups. And I love those packets we get of they're like forest mushrooms, like wild mushrooms, like black trumpets and all these exotic mushrooms. They can come dehydrated. You just plop them in the soup and they like rehydrate and give you great chewy flavor. So put a lot of mushrooms in the diet, a lot of mushrooms in the soup, and then maybe some fruit for dessert. And then for dinner, we have other raw vegetables with a dip, raw vegetables that I didn't eat at lunch, like snow pea pods or carrot sticks or peppers, with a guacamole dip or a hummus dip or a salsa dip, some kind of delicious, or a red pepper, some kind of delicious dip. And then we usually have a cooked vegetable dish. It could be a woked vegetable dish, where you're wokking Savoy cabbage and mushrooms and onions and snow pea pods and water chestnuts with a Thai curry sauce. Or it could be a bean burger with lettuce, tomato, and a healthy ketchup, or it could be it could be broccolini with a drizzle with a cherry glaze, or it could be, so we're usually having green vegetables at dinner, some cooked vegetables, mixed vegetables, maybe a little grain, maybe a little bean pasta, maybe a little bit of a bean burger, but usually some kind of a bean dish with it, a little bit extra beans with it, and a nice hearty portion of greens with some raw vegetables, and then usually a nice dessert. And I think dessert is great and important because it kind of marks the end of eating for the day.
Mm-hmm.
You have a little dessert at the end of the meal, and you try to have the dessert before you got full. So you didn't eat till you got full and then ate dessert all night long. You ate a comfortable sized plate of food, and then you have a dessert, and that's it. At 6 o'clock, you're done for the night. You shut down the restaurant, you shut down, you clean up the kitchen, you clean your teeth, and you start to think of what to recreate, how to recreate and enjoy your evening without food. So we particularly emphasizing that 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, that 4-hour period of not eating before you go to bed.
Thank you for that. And I need to
typical
get
day, typical day here at the retreat I just gave you, you know what I mean? And of course, people at home usually make a big pot of soup on the weekend, and they have leftovers, or a big salad dressing on Wednesday night, the same dressing on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they make another, so we teach people how to cook so they're not, spending the whole time in the kitchen. And there's lots of other ways people can buy our sauces, our Thai curry sauce, our salad dressings, or sometimes soups or supreme greens, some things they can purchase to make their diet so it's not too work intensive, so they can do it comfortably and not go to resort to unhealthy fast foods. I'm not talking about fast food restaurant. I'm talking about foods you can make fast and eat fast. Even if they're not as bad as a fast food restaurant, they're still not going to be good. So we want people to really put the best in their body and not self-sabotage and not self-destruct themselves with not destructively eat.
Definitely. And that Thai curry dressing, it just sparked my interest. I'm like, I have to go.
Have you tasted it?
I haven't, but I will be ordering it tonight or tomorrow. You'll see.
It's so convenient because I could go, I'm going away skiing, and I could go to a friend's house in Utah, and they say, okay, come over, we'll make you a healthy meal, but we don't know how to make the vegetables taste good. And I say, just buy some vegetables, and I'll bring the sauce. In my bag, some of the sauce. And they dish some vegetables in a wok, and I just put a few tablespoons on top, and they go, wow, this is incredible. It's like it's so easy to make vegetables taste good when you have some good sauces already made.
Definitely. And I think that's so important what you were saying about at your retreat and the way that you kind of make it nice and easy and simple. Because I think when people hear plant-based diet and think, I wouldn't know what to cook, they say. And then it's like the way that you've set this up for people, it outlines not only kind of what to eat, but gives them ways they can not, like you said, soups that last a couple of days, dressings that they can use. And Mariquita has a question I'll get to in 1 second, if you wouldn't mind answering it too in a second. I was just thinking too that food that tastes good, it makes people then think, okay, I can do this, because they think it's going to be bland. So I love that. And where would we find all of that? Is that at your website where we would find like the recipes and the dressings?
Yes. On the website, drfurman.com.
And then
one of the services I offer is that I have a membership where people can join and actually communicate with me to ask me questions about their health conditions. So rather than come to me, people, want my advice who are in other countries or all over the North America. This way they can come into the website, ask me their questions, and ask the Dr. Forum, and I could give them a little guidance over the internet, so they don't have to travel or do, they can get some advice to share with their own doctor or their own health or their own family to try to turn their health issues around. So yeah, the website has events coming up, which I have internet, I have, website events and live events. I'm doing a live event next month in North Carolina. And then, and also, of course, products that make it easy for people to do this.
That is excellent. I remember that's the first thing I saw of you wasn't the website. It was the YouTube channel. And I was looking for plant-based recipes, and you popped up. And that was when I was first introduced to you, years ago before I began doing the YouTube interviews. But it was so helpful because you think sometimes that you have to use oils and things to make things taste good. And it's like, really, I heard you say, like, when you're cooking, you could put like a little bit of water in the pan instead of using oil, or you use tomato paste, I notice a lot. And it's like you have such great advice to be healthy and still make it taste good. And when did you begin the retreat? Like how did that come about?
Well, when I was practicing in Flemington, New Jersey for all those decades, I always had a separate house. Even though I had my medical practice, I always had a separate house I rented where people would come and stay there. Sometimes just for me to be kept, eat healthy under my supervision, sometimes to do some therapeutic fasting with me. But I always had that separate house, not as big and beautiful as this retreat. So then when I stopped my practice in New Jersey, um, then I always had this dream of having a beautiful place where people could come to be moved to get well from food addiction and the overweight people. Because one of my passions, and you could say failures, and things that what were upsetting to me, was the fact that some people would get the information, they would integrate it into their brain, they would get enthusiastic about it, they would learn it, then they would try to do it, and they would do it for a while, and they would fail, gain the weight back, or go or get hurt or get a heart disease or get some problem. And I'd say, oh God, or a person would call me from the hospital and they go, I had the heart attack. You told me I was going to have a heart attack, but I just couldn't do it, Dr. Fuhrman. I didn't know what to do. So I said, well, these people have addictions. It's hard for them to do it without enforced abstinence. So I just wanted to have that extra tool in my toolbox to have a retreat where, again, like I did have when I was young, but a retreat where people come. And I designed it for long-term stays. Because people go away for 1, 2, 3 weeks, and they may eat healthy and lose some weight and they go back home, and the chance of going back to their old way of eating is too high. But when people stay for 2 or 3 months, we really change their outlook on the world, where they become more creative, happier. They learn how to make the food taste good. They change their taste muscle and their food preferences. They lose their addictive drive to overconsume calories. And we teach them a new way of thinking about self-esteem. So when they leave here, they have the tools to enjoy doing this way for the rest of their life, and they can maintain this way of living and eating. So we feel that by building and sustaining this retreat, we really are, having a tremendous effect on changing people's lives who come here. And my wife and I, it's amazing, but we enjoy this so much because we actually make so many friends here. And we make, it's like we have a business that's building friendships among the people who come and with us. So we have we're keeping this close connection with people that's really, really warms our heart. It really is a good, so we really love having the retreat. And plus my love for growing food and having fruit trees here in San Diego. I can grow exotic trees, fig trees and apricots and dragon fruit and passion fruit and kumquats and loquats and all these type of food. Some of them you can't even buy in supermarkets, like atamoyas and cherimoyas and sapotes. And I have a whole different type, so that's fun for me too, to have all these great things we can grow and serve our guests that we grow right on the premises.
Oh, that is amazing. And how long did you mention? I apologize if I missed it. How long are these stays, or is there different, plans, or how about like the average that you can
The
really get?
minimum stay is 30 days, 1 month.
30 days. Okay.
I encourage people to stay 2 or 3 months,
Mhm.
because we know the model for drug addiction. If you have cocaine addiction, it's usually a 3-month stay to go to a cocaine addiction center. The longer you stay, the much better effect it has. But some people, a lot of people can only come for a month. But still, we get a lot done in a month. And I also have some other tools therapeutically I utilize here. For example, soft wave TRT, which is a type of shock wave that we use for people with frozen shoulder or carpal tunnel or meniscal tears, meniscal damage in their knee, or osteoarthritic pain in their wrists, their joints, their knees. And by my background in sports medicine and orthopedics, I'm able to adjust their foot alignment, orthotics, treat their ankles and knees and hips or back, and get them walking, moving, exercising. So as they're losing weight and getting healthier, I'm also able to take away the musculoskeletal pain. With that as an example, we do some other therapies here to help people get well.
And I'm just thinking, that let's just say someone has, a health condition, or they have, type 2 diabetes, let's just say, or it may have had a heart attack or something, and you have a doctor that saves your life. There's always that really special, like, you have that that gratitude in your heart for that person. And I love the fact that with what you're doing, you're, like you said, you're developing relationships. You're not just saving them once, you're literally teaching them how to continue to save themselves. So that's truly a blessing for people when they come to you, and it lets them know there's a way to take control. But you're absolutely right with the food addiction, because a lot of vegans I hear say, or plant-based, they say, it seems like I don't crave that stuff anymore. And people who are probably listening that are not in that situation, they're like, there's no way that could happen to me. But it's true. And I love that you keep them there to get them to know that.
Yeah, it's really is. It's a blessing for them, and it's a blessing for us too, because
Mhm.
it keeps us connected to the community and helping people, which was such an important part of. So I'm not seeing patients all day long. I still keep connected, and I have this. So I really am still doing this type of work that's so dear to me, and I enjoy.
Yes, and I wanted to get into how and why you think this does this to the body, but Marakita's question leads into it perfectly. She said, "Could you explain prostate cancer and why do they say all men will develop it?" Well, that's interesting that she said that, because my uncle is struggling with that. And is that true that all men will develop it?
Well, I give lectures to large thousands of people, and I say to the audience, raise your hand if you've been shot by a bullet or stabbed by a knife. And maybe one or two people will raise their hand. I say, anybody in the audience or their family got a cancer diagnosis, like prostate or breast cancer, or a heart attack or a stroke? And like the whole audience goes up. And I say, and you are choosing to remain in that dangerous neighborhood where everybody around you has that happen? The facts are is that we're enhancing the ability of modern medical technology to detect breast and prostate cancer earlier and earlier. We have these new blood biopsies that can detect cancers early, and we're finding that the vast majority of people over the age of 70 have cancer cells in their body. So most women who think they don't have breast cancer have breast cancer. Most women over the age of 70 have breast cancer, and most men over the age of 70 have prostate cancer. It's just if they eat American food, they're going to get what other Americans get. They eat the American diet, causes cancer. Now, most men with prostate cancer die of heart attacks, not prostate cancer. It's a slowly growing disease, but the same diet that causes heart attacks and strokes causes cancer, because Americans eat a diet that's not designed for the human species. And when we're overweight, it accelerates the probability of developing both breast and prostate cancer, because fat cells on the body drive up insulin because they make you insulin resistant. So you have higher levels of insulin circulating, even if you're not diabetic, even if your glucose is still normal. Being overweight itself puts you in a pre-diabetic phase, and fat cells spew out inflammation, which activate more estrogen production. The aromatase enzymes are activated to produce more estrogen. So females with body fat above 25% and males with body fat above 15% have much higher levels of estrogen, increasing risk of both prostate and breast cancer. So you could say breast cancer is the female equivalent of prostate cancer, which is the male equivalent. And yes, the disease is ubiquitous, because if a woman has a negative mammogram, she still likely has breast cancer cells in her body, because the mammogram could take 10 or 15 years for those cells to coalesce into a mass that's visible to the human eye. And by the time, so in any case, if you eat American food, you have to expect to get the diseases other Americans get. You're not going to escape the biological laws of cause and effect. Eat cheeseburgers and French fries and eat and have high body weight, and you're doomed to have these needless tragedies happen to you. And that's why we're so excited about We Do, because we set people up with the information they need to not get cancer and to start reversing the damage they caused from the American style of eating.
And that's one thing that I like, at least in my early part of life, I never knew until I really delved into this world, that you can, reverse things. And how, accepted is that by people when they first hear it? It has to, shock them that, okay, I can do something about this with food, and and prevent it with food. And what, I guess, what do you feel like is the main parts of this diet as opposed to that diet that would help those things? Like these foods are preventing disease because they are keeping you at the right weight, or is there, I'm sure there's other factors too.
Yeah, it's not only body weight, it's flooding your body with the right nutrients your immune system needs for maximizing its function. So you need to have a high nutrient density in your cells. So there's two basic principles here. Number one is the foundational principle of the Nutritarian diet, which is the most proven methodology to slow aging and prevent cancer, which is these 5 words people have to memorize: moderate caloric restriction in the context of micronutrient excellence, or moderate caloric restriction with nutritional excellence, which means that we're eating high nutrient, high phytochemical, high antioxidant food, but we're not overeating, and we're modulating those calories to be at our perfect weight. There's no such thing as a healthy overweight person, even though people want to think that's true. It's not. You can't be overweight and healthy at the same time. And I'm also saying that when you achieve nutritional adequacy or micronutrient excellence, it naturally lowers your apostat and your appetite, by the way. So you desire the right amount of calories. You no longer desire to overeat when your body's full of nutrients. And then I utilize these 6 foods, heavily utilize these 6 foods that are proven in scientific studies to prevent cancer and extend lifespan and prevent cancer deaths even in people who have cancer. And that's my acronym GBOMBS, which stands for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. And when you asked me what I ate for a day, I described a diet that contained a lot of greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. I had greens for lunch and dinner. I had beans in the soup and at dinner time. I had mushrooms in the soup and maybe in the wok too. I had berries with breakfast, with no banana, just berries with no banana, because bananas can interfere with the absorption of the flavonoids from berries. And I had a little bit of grain and maybe a little bit, so I incorporated a lot of greens, both raw greens in the salad and also cooked greens with the dinner meal as well. And maybe some greens in the soup. Maybe there was bok choy or collard greens in the soup or something too.
I have collard greens in the fridge for dinner. I'm excited to hear that. It's a good choice, I think. And when you just mentioned about that, and I think that might have answered Marakita's question, though, how dangerous is obesity, to your thing that you said there. Basically, there is, not a healthy person. So it seems to me that it's very dangerous, and it's all, I think people are trying to lose weight and they think it's going to be difficult, but it sounds like you've structured it to make it, like I said, taste good, keep them full, and also make it easy for them. And if you've came up with these foods, it's like if we had this in a pill that we could put all the nutrient dense things that would keep us preventing and reversing disease, we would do it. And you have the thing here, though, all we have to do is change our diet to this, and it's amazing. And I can't wait to share this with as many people as I can, and your information based on this. And with the G bombs, at what point is that from your medical research that you found those foods are the best, like from nutritional studies you've mentioned, right?
Yes, I've spent my career reviewing more than 30,000 scientific studies on food and nutrition and health and longevity. That is my career. And I've written 12 books, 7 of which, as you mentioned earlier, were New York Times bestsellers. My most recent book is Eat for Life. Eat for Life, for example, has more than 2,000 scientific references in it. I've published about 15 studies myself, but I don't just utilize studies in my own experience. I put that together with nutritional researchers all over the world who do marvelous work. And I'd have to say, at this point in human history, the evidence is overwhelmingly corroborative. In other words, the large, well-done studies corroborate other studies that show the same thing. And that means that these foods we're talking about have incredible effects individually to offer protection, Just eating flax seeds could lower risk of breast cancer in one study. But they did a study on women who had breast cancer and found that women who had a little bit of lignin from seeds lowered the risk of death over that next decade by more than 71%.
Wow,
So that's just people, but that's just one example. So we can go into more studies, but I'm saying there are hundreds of studies on these G bombs, and there are thousands of studies on how to live healthfully to extend human lifespan and prevent cancer. And my work has been to take the scientific literature and put it together into a way that's doable in your own home, tasty, and of course, open the possibilities for people to get well. And you've met people who've lost 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 150 pounds or more doing this program. And I have more than 500 of those cases on the website where people recovered from, autoimmune hepatitis and lupus on the National Renal Cancer Transplant list, and psoriasis and all these asthma and serious illnesses. Of course, here we see about 75% of diabetics get well and become non-diabetic even in 30 days. And high blood pressure goes away even in 30 days. But some people take longer, of course. But yes, the body is this miraculous self-healing machine when fed optimally. And when people dabble in both worlds and try to eat healthy and have a little bit of unhealthy and try to eat healthy but a little bit of unhealthy, it just keeps lighting the fire under their desire to eat unhealthy foods. And they just keep going back and forth. They're under chronic stress of making these decisions. They don't see the great results because they don't do it all the way. And they don't realize how miraculous this can work.
Wow. And Mariquita said she's doing the G bombs from now on. That's excellent. Is there, within those foods, do you recommend, is there the best type of bean, or is there anything that you recommend that definitely you would include, or is it just, here's the outline and you can pretty much be flexible within those parameters?
You can be flexible as long as you don't eat just one bean or one nut or something like that. In other words, what we've learned over the last decade is that variety adds an element of longevity in your diet, variety in your diet. Eating multiple different types of beans, eating multiple different types of nuts, eating multiple different types of green vegetables, eating multiple different types of fruits. If, for example, in the the Wheel study, Women's Healthy Eating and Living study, they found that vegetable consumption was linked the most to prevention of cancer. But women who ate fruits and vegetables lived longer than those who just ate vegetables with no fruit. So we're seeing that it's still variety in the diet. And we know, for example, that there's multiple studies, maybe 50 different studies that show that when people take nuts and seeds out of the diet, they don't live as long. They have higher rates of all-cause mortality. They have higher rates of heart attack deaths, cancer deaths. When we want to eat, we're really designed that we have this unprecedented opportunity in human history to eat a wide variety of foods. And we can take advantage of that in the United States, particularly in this country. But I want people to eat some soybean products and some lentils and maybe some red beans and different types of beans, different types of vegetables, both raw and cooked, berries with other fruits, too. So I want people to eat a variety of foods, of course. So there's not one bean that's the best, but with regard to nuts and seeds, the best nut is walnut. So I want people to eat flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, and walnuts because they're the high omega-3 containing nuts and seeds. And then they can still eat the other ones like cashews and pistachios and pecans and almonds and Brazil nuts, but that's like half your nut intake. You want to make sure you get almost half of your nut intake from walnuts and chia seeds and flax seeds and hemp seeds. So if the recipe calls for cashew nuts, take out half the cashews and put in half hemp seeds, so you have that balance. So I'm trying to get people, and of course, as you know, the Nutritarian diet, one of the elements that make it so different is that conventional diets get their fat from animal fats or oils or vegetable oils, and a Nutritarian gets its fats from whole food sources, nuts and seeds and avocado and things like that, not from the oils from those food.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of people who, at least I've interviewed a few people recently, and I myself, when I first began my journey, went on a raw diet, and I did end up including cooked foods because I end up at a point where I think I want that variety and to assist, pick up weight. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you feel that they have the most nutrients, or is like cooking some things? Obviously, we would have to cook beans. Is there, I think with your meals, there's more of a variety, so it's not so restrictive.
Correct. And cooking foods makes for more biological absorption of certain nutrients and more digestibility.
Okay.
So the problem with a raw food diet, some people can thrive on it, particularly when they're younger, but as they age, their ability to digest protein goes down. And the high amount of fruit in the raw food diet lowers the protein bioavailability and content. So they have immune system dysfunction as they age because
Okay.
they're usually the diet's too heavy in fruit and not enough vegetables. And vegetables and beans, particularly beans, which add a high quality protein that's easy to digest for the elderly. So yeah, you can get by on more raw food when you're younger and more fruit when you're younger, but it's really not. Too many people getting problems with pneumonia and fungal infections, and I've seen too many people with immune system problems on raw food diets because of the high fruit diet compared to the Nutritarian diet, which is better balanced and less glycemically and higher protein levels too in the Nutritarian diet.
Could you explain, and you just mentioned about the walnuts, and do we need to supplement omega 3s? Do we need to supplement B12 and D3? That are those important to do in this particular plan?
Um, well, when you're on a plant-based or vegan diet, the possibility is that you can become deficient. B12 is the most well known, but zinc is also suboptimal, and about 80% of vegans do not have optimal levels of omega 3, which is needed to prevent shrinkage of the brain with aging. So we want to keep that omega 3 index above 6, preferably. And unfortunately, a lot of vegans get into neurologic problems as they age. And what we're saying here is if you're going to die at the age of 70 or 75, like most Americans, then probably it doesn't matter to take omega 3 because you'll be dead before your brain shrinks that small.
Well
If you're
put.
going to live to be 95 to 105 years old, then we got to protect the brain. And so I'm in agreement with the vegans that say you don't need omega 3 compared to the average American because there's not increased risk over them because they die young. But my experience, and I have a lot of experience with the healthy vegan communities, probably more than any living physician, taking care of elderly vegans who lived on healthy plant-based diets. And a lot of them developed neurologic deficits due to lack of omega 3 and later to the shrinkage of the brain. And they develop both dementia and increased risk of Parkinson's disease from low omega 3 index.
Mm.
So yes, I'm very conservatively concerned about assuring people have adequate or ideal levels of these nutrients that can be low on a vegan diet. But that doesn't mean every person who's a vegan needs them. That could be determined by testing their omega 3 index. Unquestionably, there are several studies, more than a dozen, that corroborate each other, showing that low omega 3 index correlates through middle ages and later years, correlates with increased risk of cognitive impairment in later life and brain shrinkage. So we know that it's dangerous to run a low omega 3 index. There are too many studies that are in agreement with each other that demonstrate that. Plus my personal experience. I have a lot of experience taking care of the vegan community for 30 years, more than any other living physician, seeing that that's the main, you can say, Achilles heel of a vegan diet is people not supplementing, getting into trouble in their later years.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly those three nutrients that get them into trouble: B12, zinc, and EPA, DHA, particularly DHA. B12, zinc, those are most important to study. You mentioned D3, and vitamin D is the sunshine vitamin. You could be low on a meat-based diet or low on a vegan diet. If it's not vegan or plant-based makes you low in D. It's not getting enough. It's not being out in the sun or wearing clothing in colder climates, or protecting your skin against aging and skin cancer, avoiding sun. So D might be important, and you want to keep the vitamin D level, at least above 25, but preferably between 30 and 50. But that's not a particular vegan need. That's just a need for anybody with low sun exposure and we're trying to avoid sun damage. And so that's also based on blood work. Your needs based on blood work.
That is interesting. And do you you mentioned the DHA, I think you were saying. Could you explain like what that is that's part of the omegas? just in case people don't
Well,
know?
there's omega-3 in walnuts and flax seeds. That's called ALA. And the body
Okay.
can convert ALA into EPA and then into DHA, which is made to keep the brain, the brain needs the DHA to keep its size, into it's made of a lot of DHA in the brain. And people call EPA and DHA fish oil because fish is high in EPA and DHA. So when we're not eating fish and not exposing ourselves to the EPA and DHA in fish, some of us genetically don't convert ALA into EPA and DHA as effectively as others do. And we could eat fish or seaweed, or clams or oysters, or, but people aren't aware that they're dumping thousands of pounds of plastic into the waterways every hour. And the agricultural runoff of high nitrogen dumped has created algae overgrowth, which are, especially bivalves and shellfish, is heavily contaminated with BMAA, which is linked to ALS and Parkinson's dementia syndrome. So now we have the protective effects of omega-3, but the toxicity, and people around the lakes needing lake fish, or in coastal areas of the United States or Western Europe exposed to more BMA, eating bivalves or shellfish. Bivalves are clams, oysters, scallops, and mussels, which are the most contaminated because they're bottom feeders. And those things are dangerous now in the modern world. So we're cautious to avoid trying to get those fatty acids by eating seafood. It's much safer to eat more plant-based or eat completely vegan and get those fatty acids with a supplement. And because of my community that follows my advice, I make an EPA DHA supplement that we keep refrigerated. We pack in glass and we keep it refrigerated to make sure it's fresh, because conventional these omega-3 oils on the marketplace, too many of them can sit on the shelf of a health food store or in a warehouse at room temperature for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and start to develop rancidity. So we developed a higher quality. It's more expensive, obviously, because we're keeping it refrigerated in glass, but we develop a product that's cleaner and fresher, specifically for this community of people who follow my advice and want to do what's best and make sure their omega-3 index is perfect. And we use the amount of that supplement determined by blood tests to make sure our levels are perfect. Because both too little can be bad and both too much can be bad. And that's for any nutrients. Too little vitamin D could be bad, and too much vitamin D could be bad. Too little omega-3 could be bad, too much omega-3 could be bad. We want to optimize the levels of these nutrients for maximizing lifespan.
Interesting. And then, so in that respect, we could order that from you, and knowing that was the high quality that you mentioned. And we spend money, I'm saying we, but I'm not speaking for everyone, but most people that I have known spend money on some things that we definitely don't need. And I'm thinking, you know what, in my second part of life here, when I decided that I want to make sure my health is good, that's where I need to focus the most money on. If I have to pay a little more for an organic vegetable, and that is also of importance too. I would assume, with what I hear, is the organic, anything that you can get organic. Do you recommend buying that?
Definitely. It's not only protecting for ourselves, but it's protecting the bees and the planet. And what about the farm workers who work with pesticides and chemicals, and they're getting lymphoma and leukemia from working with pesticides on the farms? I'm very grateful and mindful of the people that do the work on the farms, and all the, we get these wild frozen blueberries. Who picked all those little tiny blueberries for us? Sitting in the fields for hours picking those little tiny blueberries. It's very tedious work. And, so we're talking here about all these people that dedicate their lives to feeding the rest of us. And supporting organic agriculture makes it a better environment, a cleaner environment, a safer environment for those workers too. So by supporting organic agriculture, we're giving more work for people in the farming community who aren't going to get sick from working on farms. So yeah, and so there's so many things. And as you know, I'm an advocate of regenerative organic agriculture, and the better quality food, the better quality nutrients we get, and the better quality health we get so our health is related to the quality of the soil and the quality of the food we consume. And very few people have this viewpoint. This is this is very, you could say, radical by conventional standards, that I'm telling people to really, we're going to be happier and healthier and live longer without fear and have a more peaceful life when we put better food in our body and we cultivate some of our own food, and we spend our money, like you said, on higher quality organic food and support the organic food movement, which then supports climate, animals, people, and reduces health risks of people making the food too.
Definitely. And how dangerous, I know we'll have to wrap up soon. I know you both probably have things to do. I don't want to keep you all night, but I could literally ask 100 questions to you, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I have all this knowledge here. But I'm trying to condense it for us. Could you tell me how like dangerous processed food is? I noticed you recommend whole foods.
I wrote a book about that, and it's not a best-selling book. It's called Fast Food Genocide. It's not one of my 7 bestsellers, but I think it's such a great book. It's funny how some of my favorite, most interesting books did not become New York Times bestsellers because they're not about weight loss, reversing diabetes, reversing heart disease. They're not about dieting. Those books sell better. But Fast Food Genocide is interestingly a book that goes into how fast foods don't just damage your body, they damage your brain, increased risk of depression, anger, frustration, narcissism, lack of creativity and intelligence, that we're destroying the brain with processed foods. And I'm saying here that white flour and sugar are not food, they're a drug. They affect the brain, the drug centers of the brain. They work like a drug on our body and our brain, and they damage brain cells like alcohol does. And so white flour is a sugar equivalent, and commercial baked goods cause depression and cause disease, and it's dangerous. There's self-destructive behavior. We're talking about bagels and pasta and pizza and burger buns and croissants and pretzels, and the things people living on as the staple is not good for people's health. So it's not just reducing animal products, it's getting rid of all the processed foods, particularly all the commercial baked goods.
Okay. And so like if there doesn't seem to be any type of like we can pretty much get everything through our rice and our mushrooms and beans, and bread, if any, is not really recommended.
Well, I use that Ezekiel Food for Life bread. That's like a sprouted grain, pretty coarse, pretty healthy bread. I use some of that, or I make my own bread out of wheat berries and other whole grains, that are coarsely ground, not from finely pastry flours, that are so high glycemic. But I think the Ezekiel bread is pretty good bread. That you can, and we use some bread, and for a burger, like one slice of bread with a burger with red onion and tomato and ketchup on it, a little, with a lettuce or collard leaf on the other side. So one slice of bread of Ezekiel bread. So we're not totally off all types of bread, but certainly we're not using any white flour or recommending people any white flour products. It's all whole grain, and it's mostly intact, sprouted whole grain that are coarsely ground into a bread, not finely ground like whole wheat pastry flour. It's whole wheat, but it's so finely ground, it's still high glycemic, and the bread tastes has the cushiness of like Wonder Bread. You know what I mean? It's still not a healthy bread. And they have salt and sugar and honey and other things added to those breads.
And then I'll just wrap up after these two. I was thinking about salt. That is something that a lot of people think that they need a lot of, and when your taste changes, I'm assuming at some point like I don't care for it that much anymore. What type, if there is any salt at all, is sea salt the best, or some people think they need iodine and they use iodized salt?
All of these salts are 2,200 milligrams of sodium per teaspoon, not per tablespoon. So even a little bit of salt, extra salt, is dangerous. It doesn't matter what type of salt you're using. You're all exposing yourself to dangerous amounts of sodium. The alternative medicine community is advertising these salts as being not as bad, which is just nonsense.
Okay.
They don't just raise blood pressure. They also damage the endothelial lining of blood vessels, increasing people's risk of hemorrhagic strokes. And of course, they have other damage to the body too, increasing risk of autoimmune disease, of cancer, but mostly, and raising blood pressure, but they weaken the interior lining of the blood vessels, and you don't have to die of a heart attack or a embolic stroke. You can die of a hemorrhagic stroke, even on a plant-based diet. You can just break open the blood vessels in your brain. So the salt eating becomes more of a likely cause of death on a vegan than a person who's eating meat, because that's what they're going to probably die of from their salt consumption. I'm saying that salt consumption is probably worldwide the leading cause of premature death, is people being brainwashed to think they need to eat salt. All the salt we need is in natural foods. We don't need extra salt added to our diet over and above what food contains.
And definitely check out Dr. Furman's recipes, because it's amazing how you find a way like to sweeten things without the sugar, and you have the herbs and things, spices that you recommend to season things. So everyone, please go there and check that out. And there was one other question here, if you don't mind. Marikita asked, is it okay to eat tofu 5 times a week?
It would be okay, since I want people to eat a variety of foods. If they're eating so much tofu, they're not eating a variety of beans they're supposed to be eating. I'm all for people eating soybeans and tofu, but if they eat it 5 days a week, how are they getting in their lentils and their red kidney beans and their azuki beans? And are they just eating the same bean product at every meal? So it seems like it's a little much 5 times a week. I would say twice a week, unless you're having just a little piece of dehydrated tofu, like a tofu jerky, a little piece of tofu, and you're still eating all the other beans with your meal. That would be okay, but not having a major. So it depends. If you have enough appetite, I don't think tofu's bad, but I think you should eat it moderately and have a variety of beans, not just tofu in your diet.
I think it's interesting what lately has seemed to happen. The more that it seems we're getting the information out on the healthy diets, and people are starting to, hopefully, might be looking through these optimistic glasses. But I do feel like a lot of things, your work and books and a lot of things on YouTube and everything are coming out. And as people try, part of the world, it's also, they start to try to tell people that some foods are not healthy, like you shouldn't eat green vegetables because of oxalates, and you shouldn't eat tofu because of this or that. And they put out this, information that whenever I speak to a medical doctor like yourself, it's usually not true, or the sea salts and, things like you said,
Yeah.
that they,
Well, there's
even
billions of dollars
breakfast
spent by.
cereal. I heard you speak of that before, like the cold cereals, like how they are just like these things. They're like, oh, it has vitamins and minerals. They take one thing and try to sell you on it. So yeah, like, tofu is another example of people say it's not healthy. So
Well, there's billions of dollars spent to market and promote restaurant food and meat and eggs and dairy. And there's not billions of dollars spent to promote broccoli and collard greens and bok choy. So we have a huge industry, and part of that, those billions are spent to negatively bash, plant-based eaters or plant-based eating, and make people think sick, because obviously they don't want us rock the boat and lose their interest. So they spend a lot of money on misinformation, as we know that. So it's hard for everybody to get good information. But I'm giving the message here that the evidence we have today is overwhelmingly corroborative, and it's well, you could say, proven from many studies that more animal protein in the diet in a dose-dependent manner leads to more premature death, and more plant protein, high-protein plant foods, greens, beans, nuts, intact whole grains, more high-protein plants leads to more lifespan enhancement and longer lifespan. So now we have great evidence with those studies documenting that today. So we have a lot of solid scientific support for what we advocate. Therefore, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine has 10,000 members, doctors and physicians and healthcare professionals advocating similar information, because it's science-based. It's hard, but you have a lot of people, individuals, and that are going to knock this and knock, green vegetables are bad and beans are bad, and try to make it seem like eating meat and burgers is a better diet than eating broccoli and string beans and beans. But in any case, we know what's right. We know what helps people. We know what works. And we have these tools. We can help people change their life and for the better, and be happier and healthier, and still enjoy food, enjoy eating, and enjoy their life more. All right. Thank you. And
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I was just saying thank you so much for all the information. And please go to the description and click on Dr. Fuhrman's links. I know I'm about to go there now and binge some more of your videos and information. And I hope that a lot of people watching this will go and seek help from you and your wife and really delve into this, because he definitely makes it easy and it could change your life for sure. Thank you for everything you do and for being here. And please feel free to give any closing thoughts.
Well, my closing thoughts are don't be satisfied with being sick, and don't be satisfied with being overweight, and don't be convinced it's okay to take drugs from doctors the rest of your life. You can get well and take charge of your health destiny, and let's live a long, healthy, pleasurable, and peaceful life. You can do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and for everything you do and for this excellent conversation. And thank you everyone that has been here and watched and in the comments. And please share this video and subscribe to Dr. Fuhrman and get all this great information. You enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you. This was really, really a lot of fun.
Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.